What's going on, guys? It is JS here, back with another video, and today I am finally going to be doing a review or book summary of Fetch, the first chapter in the Fazbear Fright book series, or yeah, Fazbear's Fright book series, number 2. So honestly, I really enjoyed this. This was honestly a really great chapter to read, and also very intense because it's like something happens, but you don't know if it's gonna happen, which is honestly really cool. So I'm gonna say just like a little mini review before we actually get onto it. I just want to say, like I said, I enjoyed this a lot. It was really good. There was a lot of tense scenes in this book, and honestly it's really good. And yeah, it's also very dark as well, which surprised me a lot, especially with like some of the things in there, which is like but yeah, like I said, really great chapter. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. So most of the time I'm just gonna be looking down at this book because I don't have a script, and also too, I want to try out this method today with, you know, just me talking to the camera with you guys, or talking to you guys with the camera, instead of me, you know, using a script and all that, because one, I don't want my computer to crash, and two, I just hate whenever like the editing process, because like I mess up one thing, I have to stop it, and then everything's like all messed up and I get frustrated, and yeah, it's not fun. So yeah, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So there's these 3 characters called Greg, Cyril, and Hattie, or Haiti, however you want to say it. So basically they go to this abandoned pizzeria that is out like near this ocean area. It's like all like a big thunderstorm's happening, and it's just like thunder and lightning and pretty much anything related to that. But yeah, the abandoned restaurant or the abandoned pizzeria is of course Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, because in here it says FR, which is really interesting, and they have like, you know, animatronics and all that, so it kind of gets you the idea that this is taking place at a Freddy Fazbear location. And it also does mention that there are like something related to it, but I'm not going to say just yet. So yeah, they go to this abandoned pizzeria that's, you know, completely decaying on the outside because, you know, the thunderstorm and all that. But whenever they get inside, it's all like nice and everything. It's just a bunch of dust, and they do say that in the book, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, these kids are really smart. They're freshmen in high school. Cyril is 13, and Greg and Haiti is 14. So it is not middle school, but high school type of ages. Or could, like, maybe their schools are like this grade is like a freshman or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's an abandoned pizzeria, and they are surprised that a lot of the stuff is still there, like the pots, pans, tables, everything. It's like in really good condition. And they're just like checking everything out. They see like a curtain that's covering the stage, but they don't even want to know what's in it. So the reason why that they are in this specific area at the pizzeria is because Greg feels like he's been drawn there. Like there's something there. There's something that's been calling to him, and he's been wanting to go to this location for a lot, like for many days, but he wasn't able to. But now he's able to, and there's just something to him that's being drawn. Like there's a reason why he's there. So yeah, they continue walking around the pizzeria. They're leaving a lot of, you know, dust trails, because like I did say earlier, there's more dust than damage to the actual like inside of the pizzeria, which I thought was really interesting. So now they get over to the prize counter. Now there's stuffed animals of like a sea otter and an octopus, but when they go over, you know, there's like a lot of prizes, that like big prizes, but the biggest prize that they do find, which I believe is in here. Hold on, let me find it. All right, here's the one from whenever they go. It's like the second and last paragraph, page 6, and it says, "What's that one?" Cyril pointed at a large-headed figure with a big nose. It sat under a sign that read, "Top Prize." Greg picked it up before Haiti could. It was heavy and its fur felt matted and coarse. He was oddly drawn to the animal. Whatever it was, he studied the pointy ears, slow forehead, long snout, and piercing yellow eyes. Then he noticed a blue collar around the animal's neck. Something gleaming dangled from the collar. A dog tag. He lifted it. "Fetch," Haiti had read over Greg's shoulder. "It's a dog named Fetch." So this guy on the cover is Fetch, which is really, really interesting, and especially like a design for Fetch. Like, that's so interesting. So they find Fetch. They're trying to, figure out a way to activate it. They pick up the instructions to see how to, turn it on. And it says, "Fetch," the instructions explained, "was an animatronic dog designed to sync up with your phone and retrieve information and other things for you." So that's I guess typically foreshadowing. There's a word right there. It's kind of foreshadowing of what's going to exactly happen later in the chapter, which I think it's really, really interesting. They're trying to figure out how to turn it on because Cyril thinks that it's probably not going to work, considering like this technology is older and it's not going to work with their phones, which, I mean, it's kind of interesting because by the sound of it looks like it's from modern times, like the phones from the modern times, and this area is taking place from modern times, something like that. So Greg continues to try and find a way to activate Fetch, but there was hold on, let me read it to you guys. "For an instant, the wind and rain let up, leaving the building in a silence that almost felt menacing. Greg glanced up at the ceiling. He noticed a large stain above his head, a water stain. Distracted from his task for a second, he shined his light over the whole ceiling. No other stains. In fact, why wasn't the whole inside of the restaurant dripping? He thought he'd seen the part of the metal roof missing when he first looked at the building. Why wasn't it leaking? Shrugging, he returned his attention to Fetch. At this point, he was just randomly pushing buttons. None of the sequences laid out in the instructions were doing anything. He abruptly, as it had stopped, the wind and rain started up again at a crescendo of maniacal drumming, pounding, and wailing. That's when Fetch moved. So it looks like something inside of Fetch activated, which is really interesting. So after that, they're all starting to freak out, and they're just like, "Yeah, we need to get out of here. It's getting weird and it's getting crazy." So they basically just all leave the location. But yeah, whenever Greg comes home a couple hours later, he just does his usual thing. He does yoga, and he really loves the yoga, and it calms his mind down. So nothing really much happens after that. So they start, whenever Greg is at school, they're just talking about a lot of interesting things, like the 0-point field, which I actually did not know existed. It basically is as what Mr. Jacoby, who is a teacher for a class called Advanced Scientific Theory. Now this was, in the book it said it was an AP class reserved for freshmen who had won science fair prizes in the previous 2 years. And he says, so this energy is called the 0-point field because fluctuations in the field are still found in temperatures of absolute zero. Absolute zero is the lowest possible energy state, where everything's been removed and there should be nothing remaining to make motion. Which I think it's actually kind of interesting because they add a lot of like technological type of stuff in there, which is really cool. So as soon as Greg gets after class, now this is where it gets really, really good. So after he gets out of class, Greg feels his phone vibrate, and it's a text from a random number. Now he thinks that this text message or like something from this is one of his friends, like Haiti. But it says, "Hello, Greg, how are you?" And then he entered, "I'm fine, who's this?" The screen said, "Fetch." But Greg thinks that this is a joke from his friend Haiti because, they were there the previous night at the pizzeria. And then he said, Fetch texted him, "Question for you." And then Greg said, "What's your question?" Fetch said, "Why'd you leave?" Oh, geez. And then he said, "You're hilarious." And he said, "Thank you, you answer." Oh. So something, whenever he was there, he must have activated something in Fetch, which I might have, from like the previous thing. Hold on. It's like whenever that glow happened, or like whenever that rain stopped, I'm pretty sure that's whenever Fetch activated, or got connected with his phone, which I found pretty interesting. So after that, Greg continues to go throughout his day. He just doesn't want to worry about it right at that moment, because he thinks it's some sort of joke, but he feels like, yeah, this is something I need to worry about. By the next day, he gets a lot of messages from Fetch, but one of them is a REG code, I believe. It's 0100 111 011 01 011 011 00001 0111 1 001 and then the rest are ones. And what that whenever he translated the message, it is, I believe, so Fetch had texted Greg okay, but in a binary code, which is very interesting. And it does say the reason why is because Greg knew REGs generated random 1 and 0s. So that's basically REG type of technological like coding stuff, which is really cool. So since Fetch is like an animatronic dog that goes and retrieves stuff, Greg, like for example of a thing that Fetch did, Greg asked his mom, or like he thought he wanted, like he really wanted a chocolate bar. So apparently, whenever Greg went to the store, a chocolate bar randomly appeared, and it was also on the receipt. And it does say that Fetch had just fetched him a candy bar, which I think is really, really interesting. So that's something that's really nice of Fetch, you know, to get Greg a nice little candy bar, which I think is really cool, like a really cool part of his programming. So during Christmas time, he gets another text from Fetch. He's saying Merry Christmas, and then Greg replies to Merry Christmas to you, which is kind of interesting that Fetch knows about Christmas, which I think it's really interesting. So that same day, whenever Fetch texted Greg, earlier Greg buried a spider, I guess, you know, to prank Trent, who was a bully to, I believe, Cyril? Yeah, he was like a bully to Cyril, so they buried a spider, but whenever he got the spider, Fetch gave it to him. Or it was when, okay, so Greg lost a spider that he didn't technically lose it. He buried a spider like a long time ago. It's like this like a fake type of spider. You guys know those. He like buried a fake spider, but what's interesting is that Fetch, he found the spider before he could even dig it up, before Greg could. So he was like, okay, that's enough. I'm gonna go tell my friends about this. And then he did, and they're just like, whoa, what's happening? What's going on? Like everyone's just like, what's happening? Like Greg shows them, they're just like, okay, yeah, this is real. You need to be careful, dude. Like seriously, which I think is really interesting. And he even showed them the spider, and they were like, okay, yeah, that's not. It's like, whoa. And it even has teeth marks. So a day after, whenever they get out of school, Greg gets attacked by the neighbor's dog, which is really, really aggressive. But what's interesting is that the next day, since, you know, Greg was, you know, texting his friend about it, it's like, oh my god, I hate this dog, I wish it was dead. This is where my heart sank. Like, I was in complete shock when I read this. So this is like a day after, you know, Greg texted his friends like, oh my gosh, I want this dog dead or something. Oh gosh. He threw on some clothes quickly. Already late for school, racing to the door. Greg waved at his mom, who was at the phone. He ignored his dad, who was scowling at a spreadsheet on his laptop while he guzzled coffee. Greg threw on a rain jacket, grabbed his backpack, and went out the door and down the steps. That's where he came to a stop so abrupt he lost his balance and he had to grab the stair railing. But yeah, I'm just gonna skip a couple parts so I won't have to like say any filler. But this is where everything, like, my heart completely sank. The neighbor's dog lay dead against the back wheel of Greg's bike tire, its throat's torn apart, its belly gutted, intestines flopping onto the concrete. It was stiff and its eyes were open, as if staring in fear, maybe for the first time and last of its life. Fetch has killed a dog because Greg texted his friend that he wanted the dog dead. It's sad and dark. So a couple hours later, after he buried the dog, Fetch texted him, "You're welcome," as in like, "You're welcome that I've taken care of it for you," which is absolutely dark. So Greg talks to Haiti and Cyril if they can go back to the pizzeria, and it takes some time for him to, convince them, but eventually they agree. So they go back to the pizzeria. So they're just talking about like what they should do, like what plan do they want to have. But this was very, very interesting. When I read this part, I was like, ooh, tell me about this story. So Cyril said, "So I found out something about the restaurant." Cyril said, his voice sounded too loud and too forced. "What?" Haiti asked. "This was part of a pizza chain that closed down after something happened at one of them. And that, I believe, was... Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, it feels like that ties into the pit. Because something happened at a restaurant. It kind of ties into the pit. Because if you guys remember, there was like this incident that happened in like 1983. It was like one of those days. I'll have like somewhere on the screen. But something happened during that. And I feel like it kind of ties in there. Oh, geez. Okay, we got a cool little theory going on here. But yeah, now that I realize that, that's crazy. What do you guys think? Let me know. So they get into the pizzeria, but what they see is that dog tracks came out of the pizzeria's eating area and headed toward the lobby. So it's a clear sign that Fetch has been moving around. So they all decide to go and check out some of the storage rooms that they have in there. Like they go check out a security room and they also go check out a storage room. Now what's interesting about the storage room is that it contains 4 life-size animatronic characters. So that gives us that Bonnie, Freddy, Chica, and Foxy is all in the storage area. One of the animatronic characters seemed to move its leg. And then after one of them moved, something small, dark, and furry shot out of behind it and anchored toward Cyril, Haiti, and Greg, which I was like, whoa. Okay, I thought he was going to attack them. So they all decided to leave the pizzeria because you know what? Because they're scared and they don't want to get attacked by Fetch or they don't want to die or anything. So they just decide to leave the pizzeria. But then they decide to go back in it to check if Fetch may have fallen over or something like that, like the last time that they were there, just to make sure that he wasn't moving at all. But apparently Fetch is gone and there's basically no way he's gonna go back to his stage. They all decided to go back. Greg is like, okay, I had enough. I need to think of what to do. So Greg is studying or doing some Spanish stuff because he needs to pass a class. So he decides to text his friend Manuel, who is a transfer student, and he texts him. It's like if he needs help, and he didn't respond to him. So he's kind of freaking out, and he's like, oh no. I feel like Fetch is gonna get him. So he rushes over to Manuel's house and it turns out he's okay and Fetch didn't hurt him at all, which is really, really good. So for the next couple of days, nothing really, really happens at all. It's just peaceful. Everything's completely fine and nothing's happening at all, which is really good, and Greg is in a really good mood about that. So Greg is with Kimberly, who is a girl in his science class, and they just continue to talk about REGs and polygraphs, and also Baxter, who is a or Cleve Baxter, who is a interrogation instructor for the CIA, and he uses the polygraph machine, which is really, really interesting. And it talks a lot about that in this, which I found really cool. And they also talk about the 0-point field. Greg invites Haiti and Cyril to come over, just to have pizza and chill. And Greg brings up, about what happened the other night. There's a huge fight going on, and they're like, okay, we had enough. So Cyril and Haiti leave, and they just don't want to deal with it anymore. So basically, he's left on his own. Okay, so this part is also where it gets very, very dark and very, very gross at the exact same time. So he texts Dare, I need the magic finger of luck. Can you teach me how to make money? He didn't respond, but from Fetch, he says good night. But he realizes he texted Dare the magical finger, which since Fetch is connected to its phone, Fetch is gonna be like, okay, I need to go grab something. And this is where it gets really, really dark, so be aware. He texts him, he's like, Dare, where are you? Please answer me. And then eventually, whenever he steps outside, on the porch, there is Dare's finger, or the magic finger. It's like, you think Fetch was a nice little animatronic puppy, but he's just like a animatronic who wants to bite people's limbs off. It is so weird. His mom comes up to him. It's like, Dare's been injured. He's not looking well. He's very, very injured. Like, his face is all distorted and it's just like off. And Greg's freaking out because he's seen the finger. He knows what happened, and it's very hard not to tell his mom, which is really horrible. So he decides to go to just to walk around, but Greg stumbles across Fetch, and he is not happy when he sees him. Basically, he's just he has his his baseball bat, and he starts hitting Fetch, making sure he's all dismantled and his metal parts are everywhere. And he does that, and Fetch is absolutely destroyed. And Fetch has become a horrible, horrible part of Greg's life. Greg decides to use his anger and revenge onto Fetch. Later on, whenever he goes home, he gets a text from his friend from Haiti, and he's like, hey, are you okay? You weren't at school. And then Greg texts him, it's like, oh yeah, something happened to Dare. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then both of them apologize for what happened, or all three of them apologize, and they become good friends again. So Haiti's like talking to him about Kimberly. It's like, okay, go ahead, talk to her, see what you can do about your project. So Greg does that. And he said, he's texting her, it's like, okay. And then eventually, because she's not answering and she wants to, or he wants to go and finish the project. 5 minutes later, Fetch texted him, will retrieve. And it scares Greg because he thinks that Kimberly is the next person to die, which he doesn't want to, because he's fell in love with Kimberly ever since, they were little kids, and it would break his heart if, Kimberly was, dead. So he decides to go to Kimberly's house. It's just like a few blocks away. But then eventually, he kept thinking, it's like, okay, I don't want to become like the dead dog. I don't want to become like my uncle's finger or anything. So he decides to wait for Kimberly. Eventually Kimberly comes home. Her dad is like, okay, what are you doing here? And then, Greg, let's just say, has a moment where he just explodes. He can't hold it anymore. So he just says, I broke into this pizzeria. My uncle's finger has been torn off. A dog died. And then and then Kimberly's father is like, okay, that's enough. I'm calling the cops. So he calls the cops on Greg. They question him for a little bit. And they let him go. With his family. And this is the ending where it's like, oh my god, wow. His dad gets all mad at him. It's just he's just had enough. So Greg gets in the shower, And as soon as he's done, oh geez, okay, let me read this to you. But when Greg got out of the shower, he was wiped out. He looked at the same time on his phone. He also checked for text. Nothing. That was good, right? Maybe he could take a nap before heading to Kimberly's just to make sure she was okay. Heck, maybe he'd been wrong about the whole thing. Maybe Fetch was retrieving him a snack or information he hadn't even realized he'd requested. Maybe there really was nothing to worry about. Greg pulled on a yellow t-shirt and a pair of gray flannel sleep pants. Then he threw open the bathroom door. Barely containing a scream, Greg stumbled away from the door and fell on the tiled floor, his mind struggling to accept what he was looking at. There was something wrapped in a sheet, laying across the doorway. As he stared, the one-page sheet was turning a dark, deep red and a glistening wet in the room's muted light. Who was under the sheet? What was under the sheet? Greg couldn't get himself to move so he could find out. Greg didn't need to look any further. He knew everything he needed to know. The phone on Greg's bathroom counter vibrated. He couldn't help himself. He picked it up and looked at it. Fetch had texted, "See you." And that was at the end of the chapter. Very, very dark and very brutal. So yeah, that is about it. Hope I put out some information out there. Honestly, one of my first ever videos of, not doing like a script or anything. So I really tried about this one. But yeah, honestly, really, really great chapter. I cannot wait till I read the next one, which is called Lonely Freddy. So yes, this is the next chapter that is gonna come in next week's video. But yeah, I am really, really excited about that. Like how this book kind of tied in. I don't think it's exactly true or anything. But I think it's a theory that it kind of ties in with Fazbear's Frights into the Pit, because it said an incident happened there that made it close, like at the original restaurant. So I'm thinking it's from Into the Pit, which is brilliant. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed it. And if you guys did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe for more videos. And I cannot wait to put out next week's episode. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.